Mother's Day and the power of love. We are continuing with the power of love, and today we wanted to talk about Mother's Day, but first we're going to read a section from the Bhagavad Gita, and in this text, Krishna teaches Arjuna about a lot of different types of yoga, but the three kind of main types of yoga that he teaches is the yoga of action, learning, and devotion. And these elements, action is also like service to God, action towards God or for God, and then knowledge, and then devotion. Devotion is love and devotion. So we will just be reading a portion of the yoga of devotion. So we thought it was appropriate for today. So this is a conversation between Arjuna and Shri Krishna. So Arjuna says, "Some worship you with steadfast love. Others worship God the unmanifest and changeless. Which kind of devotee has the greater understanding of yoga?" And Shri Krishna responds, "Those whose minds are fixed on me in steadfast love, worshiping me with absolute faith. I consider them to have the greater understanding of yoga. As for those others, the devotees of God, the unmanifest, indefinable, and changeless, they worship that which is omnipresent, constant, eternal, beyond thought's compass, never to be moved. They hold all the senses in check. They are tranquil-minded and devoted to the welfare of humanity. They see the Atman in every creature. They also will certainly come to me. But the devotees of the unmanifest have a harder task, because the unmanifest is very difficult for embodied souls to realize. Quickly I come to those who offer me every action, worship me only, their dearest delight, with devotion undaunted. Because they love me, these are my bondsmen, and I shall save them from mortal sorrows and all the waves of life's deathly oceans. Be absorbed in me, lodge your mind in me, thus you shall dwell in me. Do not doubt it here and hereafter. If you cannot become absorbed in me, then try to reach me by repeated concentration. If you lack the strength to concentrate, then devote yourself to works which will please me. For by working for my sake only, you will achieve perfection. If you cannot even do this, then surrender yourself to me altogether. Control the lusts of your heart and renounce the fruits of every action. Concentration which is practiced with discernment is certainly better than the mechanical repetition of a ritual or a prayer. Absorption in God, to live with Him and be one with Him always, is even better than concentration. But renunciation brings instant peace to the spirit. A man should not hate any living creature, Let him be friendly and compassionate to all. He must free himself from the delusion of I and mine. He must accept pleasure and pain with equal tranquility. He must be forgiving, ever contented, self-controlled, united constantly with me in his meditation. His resolve must be unshakable. He must be dedicated to me in intellect and in mind. Such a devotee is dear to me. He neither molests his fellow man, nor allows himself to become disturbed by the world. He is no longer swayed by joy and envy, anxiety and fear. Therefore, he is dear to me. He is pure and independent of the body's desire. He is able to deal with the unexpected, prepared for anything, unperturbed by anything. He is neither vain nor anxious about the results of his actions. Such a devotee is dear to me. He does not desire or rejoice in what is pleasant. He does not dread what is unpleasant or grieve over it. He remains unmoved by good or evil fortune. Such a devotee is dear to me. His attitude is the same toward friend and foe. He is indifferent to honor and insult, heat and cold, pleasure and pain. He is free from attachment. He values praise and blame equally. He can control his speech. He is content with whatever he gets. His home is everywhere and nowhere. His mind is fixed upon me, and his heart is full of devotion. He is dear to me. This true wisdom I have taught will lead you to immortality. The faithful practice it with devotion, taking me for their highest aim. To me they surrender heart and mind. They are exceedingly dear to me. And that's from the Bhagavad Gita. And that's about devotion. And we're so what does this have to do with Mother's Day? One of the first things that we think of when we think of our mothers, or mothers that we know and mothers that we know, is sacrifice. So many people talk about, oh, like my mother sacrificed, or even as a mother, you might say, I sacrificed a lot to have my children, or to be a mother, or any type of nurturing energy, because this mother energy is a very creative energy. It's very fruitful. It's a fruitful energy. So if you have a project, a child, something going on that you're sacrificing for, you're nurturing this project. And so what is sacrifice? What is sacrifice? Sacrifice comes from sacred or holy, and then vice is the root word is to make. So typically sacrifice has like a negative connotation, and I think that's probably from scripture, like you have to give something up, you have to slaughter an animal, or it's something negative. Maybe not negative, but it's definitely something that you might not necessarily want to do with the emotions. You don't really want to sacrifice. People want to, even sacrificing animals, you want to keep your animals. Back in the day, it's so sacrifice does not have the greatest connotation. It might be considered honorable. It might be something that people say like, oh, he sacrificed so much, and it's considered like an honor, but it's still considered a removal of something that a person loves to do or wants to do, or something that a person loves. When actually what sacrifice is to make holy. It means to make holy. This would be a good time to realize the power in sacrifice, and in a lot of ways this also is to surrender. It's surrendering to God and surrendering to, well, whatever you're going to surrender to. People surrender to different things. People surrender to peer pressure, or drugs and alcohol, or surrendering their life in terms of settling or giving up something they love. They feel it in a way they're surrendering it, but we need to start looking at that connotation and say, what does it mean for us to sacrifice? Sacrifice is to make holy. So if we just switch this type of thinking, that maybe, for example, we think our mothers gave up so much for us, or mothers sacrificed so much, they sacrificed their lives, they're forever changed. And we're not saying this isn't true, but we're asking to shift the connotation of that. And actually, and many people do see sacrifice as love, but what kind of love? So it's sacrificing is to make something holy. So every time you have a child or a project and you find yourself giving up something that you love, actually what you're doing is you're surrendering to an even greater love, an even greater love, an even more powerful love, a love that you might not even realize. And this is God, and this is the power of love. God is all, as all, and we are that I am that I am. We are expressions of God's love. So as we thank our mothers for their sacrifice for us, and this sacrifice manifests in so many different ways that, even ways that we might perceive as negative or not out of love. No, it is actually a sacrifice out of love, a greater love than the little love. And it's moving up into the self. And the reason how this connects with the Bhagavad Gita, the reading today, the path of devotion, is that that greater love is unmoved. It's unshakable. Whether your child is successful in your opinion or unsuccessful in your opinion, the love maintains. The sacrifice maintains. And so this passage and this reflection on Mother's Day, for many people, parents is a major pressure that is it reflects God, but it is not God. But it is God. So it's like, but so many of us try so hard to please our parents, to please our mothers. Even if we don't do it consciously, we are where did our mothers get this? Where did our fathers, and fathers come into play here too, where did our parents get this consciousness to, most parents, I would say, put a lot of pressure on their children to be a certain way or to do certain things. And it's not like a fault thing. It's not a blame. It's passed down. And yes, what do we do with this? How do we deal with this? We turn to God. Turn to God as the Almighty, the Mother, Father God. We are children of God. And it's not that you disobey your parents. It's, you know, it's not to go out and say, like, you know, be mean to your parents or something, but it's to really look at your relationship with your Creator and the expectations that have been put on us that we've accepted by our parents. There's no blame, because it's all choices. It's all our choices, consciously, subconsciously. And guilt. Like, a lot of people have guilt, like, if I don't perform at a certain financial status, you know, I'm going to be disappointing my parents. And I feel guilty about that. Or if I don't, you know, have a perfect house with green grass in the front yard, you know, I'm going to be seen as a failure to my parents. Whatever the things might be, these are choices that we've made to impose upon ourselves, that through the sacrifice and through the love, we can heal these things. And this is healing the mother. It's healing the relationship with the mother and with the parents, because a lot of fathers have that nurturing energy too of, okay, I want to take care of you and see you have a good life. The reality of the matter is that this is all God's creation. Therefore, this is all love. All the sacrifices that our parents made, and this doesn't mean we're not grateful, because we are thankful to God. This is where we get everything from. So all of this comes from God. This mother, the mother, our mothers, the creation, the sacrifice, the ability to make something holy. To say, for example, I love windsurfing. I love windsurfing, but now that I have children, I can't windsurf anymore. So, and that's a silly one. I love sleeping. Now that I have children, I don't sleep anymore, you know. It's more extreme than windsurfing. But the point is that it's done out of love. And if we're following this path of devotion, we are unmoved by the good, the bad, the ugly. As parents, as mothers, we have to understand that too. As mothers, we have to see our children, our projects, our whatever we've created or helped create, because it's all, with all these forces, it's not just us, that it is perfect in God's sight. And by sacrificing, we make it holy. We keep lifting it up to God in love. Sacrificing is not something that needs to have a negative connotation. You gave up so much for me. But why? They gave it up so that they could experience, we give it up so that we can experience an even greater love And that is something to truly celebrate. That is the true, that we make sacrifices for God. And for those of you who don't have like an actual child or something, what do you make sacrifices for? How do we sacrifice for the Creator? Do we love God so much that we realize and experience the blessings that come through sacrificing other things maybe, and letting a greater love come over us? And this is letting go. This is us surrendering to God, letting go of control, and saying, well, God, I really love working. I don't know, working. I really love working. But to do your work, I'm going to sacrifice certain comforts at this moment and do that out of love. And it's not even a sacrifice. You do it out of love. So it's like, what are we doing? That's the challenge for this Mother's Day. How does every action, like this text says, every action is for God, in love with God, with the power of God, like our parents. Once we take those actions, we release all the fruits of it. It's complete surrender to try to control our children and tell them how they should be. We're distracting them from them being able to make their own sacrifices. Their aim, there we go, telling them what to do, but allow them to have their aim on their Creator. And how are they to serve God? Not us, not the parent. They shouldn't be having to serve the parent. And their expression of love for God might come through serving the parent. But the parent might also take it personally and say, well, that's not what I want, So as mothers, as parents, as children, we have to release those expectations, and children on parents too. That our parents are supposed to be a certain way. And that our parents are supposed to be like God to us. They're supposed to love us unconditionally all the time. They're supposed to love God. If we love God, we want them to love God. So all of this has to be released. And what this does is this helps us to simplify our lives. It's like wiping away the Mayan glamour, clearing away the dross, and it frees us up to really love God and keep loving God, and to love our people and our animals and our environment as God. And God, all the scriptures teach us to, despite any peer pressure or any pressure from this world, from this Mayan glamour, we have to stay focused on God, and it's not always conventional. Typically it's not. As we know, like Jesus was considered like a rule breaker. He was like totally, people couldn't believe what he was doing. And then even there's so many others. All the spiritual masters and the saints. they didn't, it's not that you're not listening to your parents and that they didn't love their parents, but they had to put God first. So I know this sounds like a totally strange Mother's Day message, but it's like relieving the pressure so that we can truly love our parents, so that our parents can we can release our parents from this pressure of things are supposed to be a certain way, and to trust God. These saints were unconventional. Many of the parents did not want their children to go into a religious pathway. And it's okay. It's okay. And it's in love. And trust God. And we always have, like, the Ho'oponopono is so effective as a tool, and we have other tools. So if you're feeling some tension, if we're feeling some tension, use the Ho'oponopono and go back to God. How am I sacrificing for God? And maybe that means that your mom needs a certain thing from you, and you can do that. And it's okay. And you give it to God. And you listen to God. And God is in all. So it's constantly talking to us, which we are so blessed. So as we go out into this Mother's Day, for those of you who are mothers and are not mothers, we are all children of God, or if you choose to, expressions of the divine creator. However you want to word it. We are that. And we have relationships with people. And even if you're a man, I'm sure there's somebody in your life that needs you as a mother, as that mothering energy, the nurturer, that healing energy. So let us heal this relationship with our parents. Let us release each other from this bondage. This bondage that separates us from the Creator. We release our mothers, and as mothers we release our children, so that we are expressions of freedom and peace and love. And sacrifice. This sacrifice, just let us understand that doesn't matter pleasure or pain. It doesn't matter happy or sad. What matters is love, and love is greater than any emotion. It is all. And that's what we are. That's what our families are. All the elements in our life, our cars, our pets, our houses. These are all expressions of love of the Creator. So, have a beautiful Mother's Day. Thank the moms in your life for their sacrifice, truly understanding what that is. And everybody experiences it differently. But as most moms tell you, they wouldn't change it for the world, even if it was hard, because it's the greatest love of all. So thank you, God, for that, for this.